Hey Realtors, this is Nick checking in with you. It is Monday, September the 23rd, and got Byron King, our General Counsel, here with me today. We are not at the SCR office. Obviously, we are down the street from the SCR office. We're here at the Starbucks on Piney Grove Road, and little known fact that y'all may not know about me, I have never had a cup of coffee, and the staff have challenged me to and plan to introduce me to some coffees today. I've got I don't know if you can see on the screen, but I've got an array of different coffees here that I'm going to try during our update today. So if I get a little jittery or jumpy by the end of this, you'll know why. This is your SCR update, episode number 342, and I'm pleased to have our General Counsel Byron join us.
Good to be here.
Good morning. Coffee is no stranger to Byron, and I've got our producer Mike here as well, and both of these gentlemen I think know their way around cafes and coffee. So we'll have a little background noise here during all this, but we'll get through this okay. So. Later this week, Byron is going to be recording a legal update regarding some corporate financial disclosure requirements that will apply to all South Carolina LLCs. Byron, why don't you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, the idea is to make more transparency in some of the money flowing around the country, who's paying money, especially in real estate. There's the federal government has noticed terrorists have been using real estate to money launder or even drug dealers, so it's a way to try to get a hold of some of those issues.
So you're recording an update, and that'll be available. We'll have that posted on our YouTube channel and our regular outlets later this week. So, Byron, how do you drink your coffee? What are you drinking today?
Well, since today is the day after the first day of autumn, I've got a pumpkin spice latte. That was Lindsay Pittman's choice, so at her staff meeting today, she recommended that, so I got that.
So how old were you when you started drinking coffee?
Probably in middle school, I guess.
Oh, wow. I used to drink a lot of soda in law school to keep me awake, but never had a cup of coffee. So I'm going to start. I've got this is a cafe latte. And I'm assuming that means coffee with milk, right, guys? That's what this means? All right. So hopefully I won't burn myself here. Let's see what this. Oh my God, that is absolutely disgusting. That's like drinking mud water, man. With a little bit I could taste a little bit of the milk in it, but so is that why they have all these sweeteners and vanilla and all these other things they add to drink? Because coffee is just by itself undrinkable?
Exactly.
All right. Dale Clift, if you're watching this today, you're going to have to tell me how you developed your love for coffee. Let's talk for a minute, Byron, about some forms questions. You know, we updated the forms to comply with the settlement, and there have been a lot of questions that have come our way. And let's start with the compensation agreement. The comp agreement, I've gotten a lot of questions lately about who should sign. Just very basic. Who signs the comp agreement? And is it the seller? Is it the buyer? Is it the brokerages? And the answer is kind of all of the above, right? It just depends on company policy. What kind of questions have you been seeing on that?
Yeah, a lot of times members are getting confused. The old Form 120, the compensation agreement, it was designed, it wasn't used that often in the past, mainly if you went outside your MLS to get the listing broker to pay you, or if you're handling a buyer with a forced sale by owner. So it's a kind of Swiss Army knife. It was designed to be used in all those situations, but all those choices are confusing members. So on the hotline, you know, up at the top, you should put the paying party. That could be if your buyer is paying you in the buyer agreement, that's the simplest and easiest, but the seller could pay you, or the listing broker could pay you. So at the very top, it's got a choice, listing broker, seller, or buyer. And people are like filling in all three of those blanks instead of just putting one in there. So what I recommend is you figure out who's going to pay. That might mean picking up a telephone and talking to the listing agent. because you're going to have to find out if the seller is willing to pick up some of your money. Say your buyer's paying you. That's easy. Your buyer agreement handles that. But if your buyer's not paying all of that, you need to pick up the phone and communicate with the listing broker. Try to find out if there's some seller concessions. Try to find out if the listing brokerage is offering some co-op. But you don't have anything agreed like the MLS. So the big change in the settlement was compensation came off the MLS. The MLS was a contract between the participants. Now you're going to have to get an agreement, this compensation agreement 120.
So I've gotten a lot of questions. So what I've discovered is there's some misunderstanding in the marketplace. There are some brokers who believe that the comp agreement needs to be presented by the listing company. And that's not the case at all, right? If I'm representing the buyer as a buyer's agent and trying to secure my compensation, I'm going to be, as the buyer's agent, presenting that form, right?
Yeah, best practice, sooner the better. Try to get somebody, because this is basically like a check, right? So you got who's paying you, how much they're paying you, what they're paying for, and then they're signing it. So the sooner you can get that. But there are some business models on the list side that say, hey, we want to see the offer up front so we can kind of see what the net is for a seller concession, or, maybe we may be negotiating what our co-op is. But in generally, mimicking kind of what the MLS was doing, the buyer agent's going to be trying to get this signed as quickly as possible. But
yeah, remember always to put, you've heard us say this a million times, always remember to put your client first. And these compensation issues generally will address themselves. But buyer agents, remember who your client is. You're not being paid by the listing company or the seller. Your agreement is with your buyer client. And just remember those obligations that you have over the course of that relationship. So I have determined, I've come to the conclusion, Byron, that I do not like cafe lattes. I gave it a good old second try. I still don't like it. So next up here, I've got I've got a mocha latte, and I love chocolate, so this has got to be better, right? So let's give this a try real quick. Have you ever had a mocha latte?
I think so.
Huh? Now this is not bad. This is like a hot chocolate with maybe, I guess it's got a little caffeine. I'll feel that later. Huh? But
You won't be going to sleep tonight, bro.
Well, this isn't bad at all. Oh, this is, I actually like this. Oh, that's going on that's really good, actually. Okay. So, what other forms questions? Before I forget, we've been gathering a lot of feedback over the last few weeks on these forms as we've seen the practice, as these changes go into practice in the field. Forms committee has been meeting several times since the implementation in August. They're meeting again in October. I expect to see these forms continue to evolve. Your feedback is going to guide how those forms change in the future. And like on the compensation agreement, very easy thing to do, right, guys, would be to add a identifier on the signature line that says, hey, this is where the buyer signs, this is where the seller or the listing agent or the buyer broker signs, right? So we're gonna delineate those, provide some clarification, make it a little easier to understand and use, and that's going to apply to all the forms across the board. But when it comes, we've been talking a little bit about buyer agency. What are some of the issues you've seen on the buyer agency side, Byron?
Yeah, so the settlement required us to put the not set by law, fully negotiable. So that's why most of the forms got updated. We had to add kind of that settlement language to all the forms. So I'm looking through here. The main thing is this page 2 where it talks about, and kind of going back to that compensation agreement, this basically sets your maximum as the buyer agent when you're talking to the list agent and the seller for concessions. You're going to have an amount on here that's going to be your top end. You can't get more than that unless there's informed consent from the buyer. If it's this buyer agency agreement, you fill it out. It's very hopefully self-explanatory. It has the compensation, who's paying it, how much it's going to be. It even has provisions for a retainer fee if they're paying up front or an administrative fee. But it gives you some options about how much you're paid and then who's paying. Does it come solely from the buyer, which is the simplest, but not all buyers have that liquidity, that cash on hand to pay you at closing. Maybe you can get some from the buyer, maybe you can get some from the seller of the listing brokerage, or the seller of the listing brokerage pays the buyer brokerage for that buyer that doesn't have the ability to pay you. So those are kind of the options that you select, and you put the customer, in this case, the client first, and discuss their situation about how much money they got and what their options would be under this agreement.
And if you're in a situation where a seller or a builder is offering more, right? The question we get is, well, how can the agent keep the extra, right? First question you should ask is how you can get that money back on the buyer side of the ledger. You've already agreed to your compensation with the buyer. Now, if you reach an agreement with a buyer that modifies your buyer agency agreement to increase that amount, that's fine, right? You can negotiate that with your buyer. But remember, just like when you're working with a seller, you've identified your compensation in that agreement, listing out what you're going to do and what they're going to do in return as well. So, Byron, I got to tell you, this mocha latte here is really growing on me. I really like this one. But in keeping with the season, I've also ordered a pumpkin spice latte. Now, I'm not a big fan of pumpkin, but how strong, before I taste this, how...
Pumpkin is just code for cinnamon and brown sugar, so it's not a pumpkin flavor. It's just kind of a fall.
So it's like 5,000 calories in this or something
exactly.
like that. All right, so let's try the pumpkin spice here. It doesn't smell like pumpkin. It smells more like cinnamon. Well, this is like drinking cake. What is the calorie count in this, Mike? You have any idea? Holy cow, that is so sweet. And all these people, I see all these people walking in here and they're getting like extra pumps of everything. Holy cow. No wonder.
Time to go to the gym.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not bad though. Not my favorite. I'm not a big pumpkin fan. So other, what else is on the forums plate here?
Kind of the...
What other questions have you been getting on the hotline?
So we get a lot of calls like, hey, I'm working at the beach. Somebody's in for the weekend. They don't know me yet. They don't trust me yet. How can I show property? Under the settlement, I have to have a written agreement with the buyer to show properties, right, either virtually or physically. But say somebody flies into Myrtle Beach. They don't know you from Adam. They find you maybe in a magazine at the restaurant, and they want to go look at a property. So the realtors are asking for some options. We tell them to use 138, which is our kind of one-page transaction brokerage agreement. You could make that just for a day or just for 3 houses. And you can make it for a small amount of money to try to build trust, because a lot of buyers maybe are reticent to sign that buyer agency agreement for 6 months or a year.
Yeah, good advice. There are a lot of other agreements floating out there on the internet and stuff that don't protect your compensation, don't provide for any compensation for you in those situations. And we don't encourage the use of those forms because we don't think you want to be out there risking your reputation working for free. It's obviously a bad business model, right? But it's also, again, you want to enhance, you want to continually show the value of your services. So people wait all year round for this to come out in the fall, the pumpkin spice. I don't know. I'm not sold on the pumpkin spice.
You got mocha number 1 right now.
Mocha's definitely mocha by far, because I've always enjoyed a cup of hot chocolate, and it's really the only thing I've ever ordered from a Starbucks before. So this is just, it's got a hint of coffee flavor, which I can live with, I think. My doctor actually told me I should start drinking coffee for the health benefits. I don't know if I'll be able to deal with the caffeine, but I guess we'll see. All right, the last drink I've got here, I ordered something cold this time. What is this, Mike? This is a vanilla iced blend vanilla latte.
I don't know anything about that one.
I don't know anything about this either. All right, let's try it out. It looks like milk on ice. That's exactly what it tastes like. It tastes like tastes like skim milk. You know, when you finish your cereal and you got a little bit of milk left in the bowl, that's just kind of what it tastes like. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, if you're into watery milk.
That's the new number 4.
I definitely taste the vanilla now. It's like a aftertaste of vanilla. Interesting. So, Realtors, we're going to wind up our little adventure here at Starbucks. Thank y'all for tuning in today. We're going to continue to we've got a town hall meeting coming up scheduled for October. Mike, I don't have the date on that. I know we'll be sending out emails. Look for your weekly emails to register. Submit your questions, and we're going to continue to be providing as much feedback as possible. The Real Estate Commission recently made a few changes to some of their policies, which we don't have final versions of that yet, but we're excited to see what that may be and how that might impact your business as well. And it's fall football is up in the air. The Gamecocks won this weekend. Clemson won. I kind of made fun a couple weeks ago of Clemson beating a high school team. I think that's kind of what the Gamecocks did this weekend. But hey, a win's a win, right? I know you're a big Gamecock fan.
Yeah, I count LSU as a win. So
there you go.
3.5.
I do too. What do you predict for the rest of the season?
They play Ole Miss next. They're ranked top 10, so that'd be a good game. Lane Kiffin be coming into town.
Oh, I picked up the wrong one. Where's the mocha? There it is. Sorry. Well, to everybody, have a great week. Stay safe. Stay Realtor strong, and we'll be back in touch again with you real soon.